Tim Deanna, and I endure it in search for credit on the cinematic adventures. Unfortunately, I don't have a new episode to show you this week. Certain things happened in the scheduling, and, well, I had to go back to the drawing board so I could figure out what to do next week for my upcoming Halloween series. However, just because I don't have a new cinematic adventure to show you doesn't mean I don't have a cinematic adventure for you. This review was developed in May, but I couldn't release it due to conflicts and scheduling and whatnot. But I now have it ready for you, and it is a crossover that is long overdue. So join me as I team up with Decker Shado as we review the quote-unquote blockbuster from 1998 simply called Godzilla. Enjoy. Oh, hi. Tim Deanna here. I just need to grab something and just, leave. Yeah, so, no video today, and I better do it fast before,
Hello, World Wide Web. I'm Dr. Shado, the internet personality with the best hair.
He shows up.
Well, Tim Deanna, shall we get started on this review?
Yes, well, about that, Decker, I was thinking, what if we don't do a review today? Let's just skip this one.
But it was your idea.
Yes, it was, but, I've made mistakes before, and I can tell you now this is a big one, so I think the best thing to do is just not review this movie. Besides, I don't think there'd be a problem in the contract.
No, according to this contract, it is pretty clear that a second review is mandatory.
Yes, but I don't think it's going to be that big a deal. I mean, we could skip this movie. The punishment of not going through with the contract shouldn't be that bad.
No, it says right here that disregarding the contract pays the penalty of death.
Well, viewers, our review today is a well-known box office bomb called,
Godzilla!
Godzilla. Yes.
Well, the best way to start this review is by looking at the 60-year history of the iconic monster. Originally known as Godzilla, the 1954 film was the forerunner of the kaiju genre. Godzilla was so popular that the film came to America in 1956 in the form of Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Why this film was so successful is beyond me, but I digress. Godzilla would go on to be featured in over 30 films, 28 if you just count the Japanese movies. In this case, though, Godzilla did not come back to the States until the 80s in the movie Godzilla 1985, the sequel to Godzilla King of the Monsters. Wait, there's a sequel to King of the Monsters?
I'll take it from here. While Godzilla had a presence in the States, American studios had yet to create their own interpretation of the giant monster. That wasn't until the 90s when TriStar purchased rights to Godzilla in the hopes of franchising it.
The concept of a film was in 1994 with Dutch filmmaker Jan de Bont slated to direct, and writers Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio would write the movie's script. The idea behind this film would change Godzilla's origins from his nuclear background to one that connected the kaiju with the lost city of Atlantis.
What?
Well, nobody said it would be a good idea. I guess Toho thought so, because they did use that angle when they did Gamera the year later.
While things were in motion in 94, TriStar was not hip on paying DeBon his fee of $110 to $120 million. So, they hired director Roland Emmerich to both write and direct this monster film. Now, Roland was already known for his big blockbusters Stargate and Independence Day, two films that promised a lot, but fell short of being classics. So like the films before it, Emmerich promised a big blockbuster, and the advertisement continually teased the classic monster. The trailers would never show him, but you knew he was going to be big, which meant that this film was going to be a big-time blockbuster. Then the film hit theaters, and the only dismay caused by this disaster film was the massive bomb it left behind. Critics hated the movie, and Godzilla fans do not hold this film to the highest of respects. So if you're a Godzilla fan going in to review this film, you can only imagine the horror that awaits.
Well, you never know, Tim Deanna. Given the movie has been out for 16 years, maybe it has gotten better with age. I was trying to be optimistic.
Well, you failed. This is the review to Godzilla.
After a credit sequence riddled with foreshadowing, the movie opens with a Japanese fishing ship sailing in a stormy night.
And just by looking at this scenario, you can tell that this night is not going to end well for the fishermen.
What kind of transition was that? It wasn't even a beat between scenes.
I know, they could have at least thrown in a fade out or something. Anyways, we're introduced to Nick Totopoulos, played by Matthew Broderick.
Nick is an NRC scientist who is studying worms affected by the radiation of Chernobyl.
Ah yes, Chernobyl. The place where all movies go when dealing with radiation.
I don't see why films have to keep using Chernobyl as the radioactive hotspot. I mean, there have been a number of incidents with radiation spreading into the world, and in fact there was one about 2 years before this film was released.
I don't know, maybe it has to do with... Wait, why are we having this conversation? However, Nick gets assigned to a new task by the government. After Nick gets his orders, we cut to an island on the South Pacific, where one of the fishermen survived the mysterious attack. While traumatized, the fisherman is questioned by a Frenchman named Philippe, played by the go-to French actor, Jean Reno.
What did you see, old man?
Godzilla. 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 Well, if you didn't know you were in a Godzilla movie, you do now.
Actually, Tim, I believe the fisherman said Gojira.
Really? Because I could have sworn he said Godzilla.
Well, saying Gojira makes sense considering that is Godzilla's real name, the original one.
Godzilla, Gojira, let's call the whole thing off.
The film cuts back to Nick, who arrives on an island. After touching down, he is greeted by Colonel Hicks, played by Kevin Dunn.
Bah!
You okay?
Yeah, just... Transformers.
Well, Hicks updates Nick on the situation and leads him to the spot where he wants Nick to examine.
However, Nick is oblivious of what he's supposed to be looking for.
Where is it? I don't see it!
He doesn't realize there's something suspicious about the ground's formation?
Oh, it's not like he's a paleontologist.
I told them this is not your field, but they never listened to genius.
Nick, this is Elsie Chapman of the National Institute of Paleontology. She's your boss.
See, there's our paleontologist, played by Vicki Lewis.
Oh, so we actually have a paleontologist playing an important role in this movie.
If by important role you mean completely pointless, then yes. With Nick updated on the situation, we cut to New York, where we're introduced to Audrey, played by Maria Patillo. Audrey works at a news station, where she hopes to become a big-time news reporter. What this has to do with a giant lizard is beyond me.
Well, it makes as much sense as adding Raymond Burr to the 1956 film.
Touché.
Did you talk with Humphreys?
This is not the place.
Just tell me, did you talk with him?
Teddy, consider it. It's between you and Rodriguez.
You're serious? He's gonna consider me for the job? What else did he say?
Well, why don't we talk about it over dinner tonight? Your place.
Mr. Kamen, you're married.
Yes, and you're very beautiful. Have I ever told you that before?
Mr. Kamen?
Unfortunately for New York, it looks like Godzilla is heading their way after he attacks ships along the eastern seaboard.
Well, there goes the next episode of Deadliest Catch.
I don't think that'll be a problem, as Deadliest Catch wasn't around in 1998.
People taking fun of like my references. Back to Nick and team, the group is now traveling to the States as they just got wind the creature is being sighted in the Atlantic Ocean.
On the flight, Nick analyzes a sample he found on the island, coming to a conclusion of what they are dealing with.
I believe that this is a mutated aberration. A hybrid caused by the fallout on these islands.
Uh-huh. Like your earthworms?
Yes, yes. We're looking at a completely incipient creature. The dawn of a new species. The first of its kind.
Remember, unimportant details means science, and science means credibility.
Well, it's just a rainy day in New York City, with Audrey figuring out what to do with her life. She talks to her friend Lucy and her husband. Ah!
What? It's just Hank Azaria.
Sorry, it's just Smurfs. Anyways, as New Yorkers go about their daily lives, something big is coming their way.
Hey, Joe, gonna catch one of them little fish in the East River?
I hope so, but you never know.
I said something big is coming their way.
Hey! I got a bite!
Would you just get to the kaiju already? Thank you!
It's not like that guy was causing any problems.
Yes, but there was just so much emphasis on the guy.
Godzilla finally appears, well, so to speak, and starts destroying Manhattan. The destruction leaves Hank Azaria, who plays a character known as Animal, to chase after the beast.
Well, goodbye, Hank Azaria. Oh, come on! Godzilla rampages through the city and manages to destroy several buildings, and he's gone.
What?
Yeah, that sounded weird to me, too.
After its initial attack, he, disappeared.
What?
How do you lose a giant monster? It should not be that hard to miss.
Yeah, and if it does manage to get away, it's not like I can't track it down. A monster that size is gonna leave some pretty obvious tracks. For that matter, why is he hiding in Manhattan?
Look at it. It's perfect. An island, water on all sides. But like no other island in the world, this is a place where he can easily hide.
Well, that doesn't help. If he is in the city, then he is either hiding in a building or he is underground, and neither would work. If he is underground, then people on the top would undoubtedly feel the ground shifting beneath them. Actually, do the people of Manhattan notice anything different?
Well, aside from a few shots of people evacuating the city, no. In fact, most of these people treat it like it's just a normal day in New York.
Hey, that's my bit.
Oh, sorry, I just always wanted to do that. Go ahead.
Thank you. Along with the army getting situated is the arrival of Mayor Ebert and his assistant, Gene. Guess who they're based on?
Ah!
Was that because it's Siskel and Ebert?
No, that was because I forgot to watch Game of Thrones this week. But yeah, the Siskel and Ebert knockoff is... How do I put this? Oh, yes. Beyond stupid! After going through the film's two subplots that really have no bearing at this time, the Army tracks Godzilla by going through the destroyed subway stations. For Decker's sake, I won't go into the logic of how Godzilla's been moving around undetected. Having no luck finding the creature, Nick comes up with a plan to lure the kaiju out of hiding.
Jump!
Alright, let's pile it on. Let's get out of here. That's a lot of...
No!
Did you have to do that?
Not really, but it was fun. Besides, I finally learned how to do this trick. See, watch.
Of course. It's a trap.
This is Sparta!
I'm Dom Perignon, saving you from getting ripped off!
It turns out that Nick's plan works as we finally see Godzilla in all of his glory.
Is that?
That's Godzilla.
Oh, Godzilla? Is that what that is? I see. Movie? Why does Godzilla look like the T-Rex from Jurassic Park?
I think the filmmakers were trying to give Godzilla reasonable design.
I'd be okay with them doing something different with Godzilla's look. But that design not only looks far from any idea of Godzilla, but it looks to me that the filmmakers behind this movie, and I mean this in the most professional way possible, have never seen a Godzilla film before! But, you know what? It could have been worse. I mean, I can only imagine what Godzilla's design looked like in the original concept of this movie. Could you please excuse me? I will be right back.
After Nick takes a picture of Godzilla, Godzilla gets a closer look at the scientist. Rather than eating Nick, Godzilla goes right for the bait, leading the army to attack the 300-foot lizard. Like any kaiju film, the army's offensive is ineffective, as the mighty Godzilla cannot be harmed by their useless...
So, what did I miss?
Oh, just Godzilla running away from the army and said army doing more damage to the city than the kaiju.
Okay, I think I'm ready for whatever this movie has in store. I stand corrected!
I know I should have just done another video with Creepy.
After Godzilla makes a fool out of the army, he disappears yet again!
How the...
Don't bother. Because of the press pass she stole from earlier, Audrey is able to get into the restricted areas and see Nick, who just so happens to be her college sweetheart. It was mentioned earlier, but it really wasn't convenient to talk about until now.
You're still mad at me?
Well, you left without a phone call, a letter, nothing. All this time, yeah, I guess I am still a little mad.
That was 8 years ago. Some people change.
Most people don't.
Movie? You do realize this is a kaiju film, right? And you just had a giant lizard rampaging through the streets, so, this scene's tone, doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Nick and Audrey return to camp as Nick looks at the blood sample he got from Godzilla.
He's pregnant.
He is?
He? A very unusual he. I mean, obviously, these tests weren't designed for this, but fundamentally they look for the same hormonal patterns to indicate pregnancy.
Movie, you do realize that over-the-counter pregnancy tests sold to human customers designed to detect human enzymes and human pregnancies. They wouldn't work for a giant lizard.
Okay, Decker, 1, this is a Godzilla movie, and 2, this is a bad Godzilla movie.
Seeing an opportunity to get a major story, Audrey steals the tape with the footage about Godzilla from Nick's tent. I'm sure no problems will come of this.
Research team member Dr. Nick Papadopoulos believes the creature may be nesting using this despite the fact that the combined might of the United States military has been unable to subdue...
You went to the press with this?
Species.
No, I haven't talked to anyone.
They mentioned you by name!
No, they didn't. They said a guy named Nick Papadopoulos gave them the tapes.
Pack your stuff, mister. You're officially off this project as of now.
I understand that Nick must suffer the consequences for his stupidity, but seeing as there is a monstrous lizard loose in the city, wouldn't it be wiser to fire him after the crisis is averted?
Well, by this movie's logic, people tend to forget there's even a giant monster in the city. When Nick leaves town, Audrey tries to apologize, but Nick will hear nothing of it. Can't say I blame him.
While on his way to the airport, the taxi driver makes a wrong turn. It is revealed that the taxi driver is none other than Philippe.
Finally, in the main plot I see. Well, Philippe wants Nick's help to locate the nest and destroy the eggs. Animal overhears Nick and the Frenchman and tells Audrey about it so they can follow them in the hopes of Audrey making amends.
Meanwhile, the army plans to take out Godzilla by pulling the same bait trick from earlier, and shocking as it may seem, it doesn't work.
Raven flight, evasive maneuvers.
Decker, have you realized that the army has destroyed more of the city than Godzilla has?
Yeah, that was obvious earlier.
Well, have you also realized that not only has Godzilla barely destroyed anything, he really hasn't caused much death or dismay and not really acting like a kaiju?
Yeah.
This is a kaiju film, right?
I don't know anymore.
The army finally corners Godzilla and takes him out with torpedoes.
Not only did they defeat a fleeing monster, but they managed to wipe a rare creature off the face of the earth.
Hooray for genocide!
Nick and Philippe follow Godzilla's tracks in the subway, which leads them to the nest. And you'll never guess where the nest is located.
Of course, the nest was located in Madison Square Garden.
But how?
I mean, what better place to end this film than one of New York's most prominent locations?
How could Godzilla fit in there?
It was the only place no one would expect.
How did no one notice?
It was the perfect place to shoot scenes and get as much product placement for the film.
But
Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. Madison Square Garden.
So now the team has found the nest, the only sensible thing to do is to destroy it with C4. And there is absolutely no way for this plan to backfire.
You smell like the fish.
What is with this movie and fish? I feel like I've seen more fish in this movie than films on fishing!
The next couple of minutes is Nick and company running away from the baby kaijus, the expendable characters being killed, and Audrey and Animal just so happen to be there.
I can't help but feel like I've seen this scene before. Well, not in this movie, but in another film. Popular in the 90s and had to do something with giant reptiles.
It's not coming to you, is it?
No, not really. The four find themselves trapped in the press room. They use a camera to connect with a live news feed of Channel 4. And that's how Audrey gets her big story.
Regardless of what happens to us, the most important thing is that this building be destroyed immediately before they can escape out into the city. Reporting live from Madison Square Garden, this is Audrey Timmons for WIDF News.
Well, far be it from us not to condone their last request. We will never forget their brave sacrifice.
You know that doesn't happen.
Let me dream!
The group only has 6 minutes to escape the stadium. After dodging more kaijus, they make it to the door, but are stopped by a horde of Godzilla babies. And they've just been standing there this whole time? Why haven't they tried to escape into the city? These creatures can dent steel doors, but they can't get through glass ones?
And for that matter, why are they all at one exit? I mean, I've never been to Madison Square Garden myself, but I'm pretty sure there's more than one way to get out of the building. Well, the four managed to get past all the baby kaijus and escape the stadium. And then it blows up.
Fleet has
Good hits.
So not only have the army destroyed a rare creature, but they also completely wiped out its young.
Hooray for genocide! So, with the babies killed, it looks as though the city has been saved. Well, I guess they all lived happily ever after, and we can wrap things up.
Do you really believe that?
Will get me out of this movie faster, then yes I do. No, it turns out Godzilla did survive the last attack and got back just in time to find his babies dead. So you can only imagine who he's going to take out his frustrations on. And he certainly has just cause. People.
The chase comes to a head when Godzilla gets tangled in the bridge's wires. This gives the army the opportunity to fire missiles at the creature and kill him.
So, here we have a kaiju flick that not only has the monster causing almost no damage, not only has the army being competent to fight the monster, but kills the monster out of sheer dumb luck.
Well, when you put it that way, it sounds pretty disappointing.
Decker, imagine everything that's happened in this film except change the title to Gamera. And that is the appropriate response. So Godzilla is dead, and everybody but the audience is pleased. Audrey and Nick get back together, Audrey quits her job, and Philippe walks away hoping to get as far away from this film as possible. So, that's Godzilla, and seeing as there's nothing else to see, nobody cares, movie! This film is both frustrating and disappointing. Now, taking out the kaiju factor, where does this movie stand just as a film? Well, I suppose it stands like every other Roland Emmerich blockbuster. By that, I mean the movie has no sense of storytelling, useless characters who have nothing to do with the overall plot, disaster scenes that oddly enough don't feel that disastrous, and entertainment ceasing to be entertaining. So as blockbusters go, this movie's pretty poor. Now for the kaiju factor. It is clear from watching this film that Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin have never seen a kaiju film before. Or at least they haven't seen a Godzilla movie. I am fine when a movie wants to do something different from its source as long as it makes sense in the context of the film and holds some bearing to the original source. This movie does not do that. The only thing that this movie has in common with Godzilla is the name and the name alone. Even at Godzilla's worst is better than going through this, and that is saying something. I take Raymond Burr over the entire cast of this film. In fact, I'd rather see Raymond Burr play all the roles than sit through this ridiculous ensemble. I guess if you're not a fan of Godzilla, then maybe you can sit through this movie. But I think even that might be pushing it. Trust me, this is a blockbuster that you should ignore and most likely forget. And if you really want to watch an American kaiju film, then watch Pacific Rim.
If you follow my reviews, you probably know I'm a fan of cheesy action flicks and the kaiju genre. You'd think then I'd highly recommend the TriStar Godzilla, but no. Pretty much the first genre masquerading as the second. The science is laughably bad, even going by kaiju movie standards, and the plot has almost nothing to do with the monster. It's far too heavily focused on Nick and Audrey's oh-so-special relationship. That's not inherently bad, but the time spent hammering over and over again that they were an item some 8 years ago could have been better used fleshing out any other character on set so maybe I could care about these people. The biggest problem, as it's been said so many times before, is the fact that this movie is called Godzilla. Not just because the monster is completely different, but while a kaiju flick is comparable to a disaster movie, this film is more about the struggles of trying to make it as a TV reporter. Any disaster seems incidental, if anything, and the only thing people notice being destroyed is one building out of 20. Maybe. Overall, Godzilla is popcorn entertainment if you feel like watching things get smashed and or blow up, but can't even work too well as that thanks to the love interest subplot cropping up to derail the excitement every now and again. So TriStar's Godzilla manages to barely hold on to 2 bags of Madison Square Garden popcorn out of 5.
Well, Decker, that wraps up this crossover. Thanks for enduring it with me.
I must admit, while going through this film certainly wasn't fun, the team-up was enjoyable. I wouldn't make it a regular event.
Likewise. Granted, it's not often I had to deal with disasters of this caliber. I mean, not many blockbusters have no concept of storytelling, ridiculous characters, poor humor, big on explosions, and divulges everything from the source material.
Are you okay, Tim Deanna?
Oh my god, this is Transformers all over again.
What is it with you in that film?
Do I have to bring up Steven Seagal?
Never mind.
I'm Tim Deanna, and I just endured it.
Thank you all for watching. I've been Dr. Shado. And remember, if anyone tried this shit with Gamera, there will be hell to pay!
Fair enough.
How did I not get a cameo in this review?
Don't worry, Creepy. We'll get them next time.
You hear it next time.
That's a lot of fish.